Hello and welcome to the PE Insights podcast, conversations about physical education with me, Nathan Walker. Thank you for joining me. You're very, very welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as we delve into another insight around physical education. Yes, hello, welcome back to the PE Insights podcast. Nathan here. Great to have you all back. Welcome to today's episode. Today, we catch up with Steve Waide. Steve is an educational consultant and the co-founder and director of Beyond the Physical. Steve has got lots of experience of coaching football, working in initial teacher education, and is a previous secondary qualified PE teacher, but now has a real focus on developing and improving the quality of primary school physical education. Hope you enjoy this one. Steve, welcome to the PE Insights podcast. Good morning.
Good morning, Nathan. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, really looking forward to this one. Been following a lot of your work, and it was great to meet at the sandpit at Loughborough for the first time face to face.
Yeah, so I wasn't able. I met a lot of people face to face that I'd only seen online and through COVID.
Yeah. For between us, I think we need to do a little bit more of that. But it was a really good day. So, thanks for getting up early and coming on and having a chat with me today. Really appreciate it.
No
So let's start with telling the listeners a little bit about yourself and your journey so far.
Right. Yes. So I was trained in secondary physical education. Did that in Manchester Met actually, and then from there went into secondary PE and became a head of department quite early in my second year of teaching.
Wow.
In head of department, which led to being head of faculty, and it was in a tough inner city school in Leeds, a really tough school, and we had to try to do things differently, and that's probably led to what I've done for the rest of my career. We had to find different ways of engaging pupils, and then towards the end of that, we set up a primary cluster as well, so it became a bit of both, something I was interested in and wanted to explore, and so did my staff as well. So they started delivering in primary, and it was starting to get an understanding of not transferring what you do in secondary into primary.
Yeah.
And then I had a random opportunity came up for me to join the FA's PE unit. Well, I say an opportunity, someone told me about a job and it sounded interesting without really knowing what it was. And
Yeah.
I think even to the day I took the job and the first day on the job, I didn't really know what it was. But that allowed me probably the most beneficial part of my career, really, because between us as a team of 20 people who were working across primary schools across the country, predominantly on primary stars with community club organisations, we went in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of primary school. You'd come together and you talk about what you'd seen, the good, the bad, the indifferent. So that was a really important part of my career in terms of getting that exposure to so many different settings and contexts, and good delivery in different delivery from both teachers, from coaches, from whoever it may have been. It was really interesting for me to explore that, and there was a really beneficial period of my career, without doubt, probably the most, as I said. And then from there, myself and a couple of colleagues who were in the PE unit at the time decided to create Beyond the Physical in the middle of COVID. And I think my wife thought I was mental and worried about it, but we were confident we could, because of everything we'd seen, that we could create something that would have an impact even during that period, which obviously we had to approach it very differently. And that was just over, it's 3.5 years ago now, we set up Beyond the Physical. And since then, we've been involved in a range of roles. I think that's the, I'm currently on my DProf at Leeds Beckett University, and one of the things we asked us to do is consider our role. And the only way I can describe it, I suppose, is plate spinning. Teacher education, content creation, teaching, modelling, mentorship, all sorts of elements come out of it. So it's very diverse, but I suppose our bread and butter, or what we're trying to achieve, is to get the scheme of work to a place where it's having an impact across the country. But so it's been an interesting journey. As I say, that the FAP unit being in the middle was the bit where it opened my eyes to what PE looked like across the country. Because naturally, when you're teaching and you're in a school, I've worked in a number of settings, work in one school, but you're in your own bubble. It's 100 mile an hour. You don't really get time to reflect. And that 3 years was massive for me.
Yeah, amazing. So it's a bit of a shout out to Vinny Halsall as well, because I've worked with Vinny quite a bit. And did the FA stuff, did that sort of shape your sort of developing PE philosophy, or were you all, because it's quite holistic, isn't it? The FA's aims are really holistic. Is that something you had before your work with the FA, or was it something that you
the holistic approach was definitely before the FA, because as if you go back to that secondary school I worked at, it was we were, in terms of ability, I suppose the ability was low across the school.
Right.
I remember one of the first questions I used to ask pupils when they came, does anyone do anything outside of school? And you get maybe 2 or 3 hands up. So we had to try to change our curriculum approach even then, and this is 10 years ago, to make it more holistic and more meaningful to pupils who weren't interested in doing rugby in November on the top field in horizontal ring. So I suppose I had that opinion, or definitely towards the end of my teaching anyway. I definitely had that opinion and that approach, but that obviously helped me get the FA job, I suppose. And then all the time, we did a lot of work there on the holistic approach to PE, obviously predominantly through invasion games, naturally, but that is something that we developed over the 3 years, and like the likes of Vinny were there even longer and still is, and they're having the impact they're having now. But it certainly rubbed off on me working with so many brilliant people, really. And like I say, the team of 21, absolutely learning stuff up in every single day. It was really positive. So it has undoubtedly, in answer to your question, it has shaped me and my philosophy.
Brilliant. So I'm also a little bit interested in the fact, because I know you coach football to a high level, so you work with high performance footballers, right? So is there any tensions between that? Like obviously the environment is probably different to what your PE lessons look like. Is there anything you take from both and apply to others?
Yeah, I suppose it's the other way around. So if I think about when I did my UAFB license, for example, I delivered them sessions as if I was teaching. So in terms of how I shared the success criteria, the individual challenges and all that elements with literally as a lesson. I remember when I delivered the first assessment, they're like, oh, this is different. Why have you done it like this? So I explained. So it aligns to what they were asking us to do in terms of the approach, but I sort of delivered it as a lesson. And I suppose the challenge I have the other way around is that we work with quite a lot of coaches, and a number of coaches, and I've done obviously naturally, particularly at the FA. It's getting them to understand the differences between them. So that has been beneficial. But I suppose if you were to watch one of my coaching sessions, particularly with the university team, they are more like lessons, a lot of questioning, a lot of, right, this is the problem, you've got 10 minutes to go out, you're going to play and solve it. So there's a lot of ownership. I asked them to come up with ideas around set pieces and even sessions. Well, I was space from I want one of the leadership team to bring a activation activity for that session, or a social activity. So I tried to amalgamate both approaches as best I can, but sometimes in the football you have to be a bit more direct, and I will teach good for 8-year-olds.
Great. No, really interested in that. That's brilliant. It's really refreshing to see that you're taking it into sort of high performance coaching as well, which is great. So a question that everyone gets second on the pod is, why is physical education important to you and to young children?
Well, I suppose as beyond the physical sideline, it's about having such an impact on young people's lives that it can transform their lives. That I genuinely, and I say this to every group we work with, that, and particularly when you're working with a group of primary teachers, and probably 3/4 of the room think I'm talking absolute nonsense when I say this. I say it's the only subject I see that it can have such a holistic impact on children. So hence the name of our organisation. So we want people to focus on beyond the physical, not just the physical skills, and not just those who have perceived high ability. We want them to allow opportunities for everyone to be successful. And I think if you can do that, and you can get a message across to a child that if they can come up with ideas around tactics and strategies that perhaps they can't implement as well as the pupil next to them, but they can do that, then they're just as successful in that lesson as the person who's scoring 4 goals. Then the impact is huge, and it's trying to get I suppose that message out to as many people as we can, that how beneficial it is. And I'm talking as a convert in talking to you, Nathan, and
Yeah.
a lot of people listening to this will be like, well, yeah, 100%, that's what PE can do. But I suppose it's about us ensuring that message is spread far and wide, particularly in primary schools. So, I mean, if you look at the new consensus statement for physical literacy, for example, I've listened to a lot of presentations like the AFPE conference and a few more local ones to us, and it's music to my ears listening to it. Close that third element of lifelong engagement.
Yeah.
When I see the room, often that the presentation is being delivered to, and I see people within the room, and schools that I know I've worked with and seen, you think you haven't got the first two right yet, so you're never going to get the lifelong engagement for your pupils. And I suppose what is most important to me is ensuring that we can ensure that lifelong movement, or lifelong engagement, should I say. And I think at the moment, which I'll speak a little bit more about when we talk about my approach beyond physical, it's trying to negate them problems, I suppose, and ensure that everyone does have a positive experience, because, as I said, I don't think there's another subject that can have that impact. So when you see a child, I mean, my daughter's not particularly, I hate this word, and I apologise to those viewed sporty. She's not a sporty child, but they recently changed their curriculum from one cricket. They've had 3 while she's been there. The middle one was okay, the first one wasn't great, and they changed the game. But she's just coming home talking about it. Now, she never was talking about it before. Never, ever. She's coming home talking about what they did in the lesson, and it's interesting that she doesn't use labels. She doesn't call it cricket or football or handball. They have different titles of the units. And it's engaged her. She asked me to come for a run the other day. I mean, that's incredible.
Wow.
If you knew my daughter, that's incredible. So it's that's what we need to do. We need to engage all, and not just the physical entertainment.
Is your daughter primary or secondary?
Primary's in year 6 now, yeah. She's in year 6. She appears in a lot of anecdotes actually across but I suppose it's the most close to
naturally.
home. But
we just hope that the engagement continues as she moves into secondary school, and that, again, a different curriculum. You said she's had 3 already. She's going to go to secondary school next year and probably experience another one.
Exactly, and I think that's another reason behind the importance of PE, particularly in primary, is preparing them for that. By preparing, I don't mean delivering 11-a-side football in year 6. I just mean giving them the skills, fundamental movement skills, fundamental movement to be able to go into secondary, which tends to be more sport specific and have a go at everything. I'll leave it to the secondary teacher to teach them the rules, in my opinion. Obviously, not everybody's.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear just briefly, before we talk about beyond the physical, about your PE experiences when you were at school and how they shaped you. What were they like?
Well, if I was to tell you my experiences as particularly secondary PE, most people wonder why I've ended up working in physical education. So again, I went to a very tough inner city school in Leeds called St Michael's. It was shut down now. And I remember one year we celebrated getting 10% GCSE results, like we'd won the lottery. And we had no facilities, we had nothing. But we had a yard, but we had to get a coach, and we were shipped out to some playing fields about 15 minutes away from us. And every week, from what I can remember, we did cross country and football for 5 years. Any weather. So there was a bit of a flip side to that, again, from a selfish point of view, that obviously I was into my football. So I remember once we tried to do rugby and that ended in disaster, so that never happened again. But the quicker you got around across country, then you could play football. So those who wanted to play football, and we ran in 10 minutes, and and we'd be playing football in all weathers. I remember playing in a foot of snow. And then there were those who didn't want to do football, would just walk around across country for an hour and a half, and then we get back on the bus and go home. So in terms of experience, I suppose I didn't mind it. But if you think of the other 180 pupils in that year group, I can imagine that the lion's share of them have no interest in physical activity or movement at all.
So I'm making
positive.
Yeah, I'm making the assumption then that is a driving factor
for you,
Yeah.
and also your young daughter is a driving factor, and your experiences of being a leader in a school that has quite a big challenge on their hands, and then the holistic approach from the FA has shaped your thinking, your thought processes, which kind of leads us on to the conception of beyond the physical, I suppose. That started during lockdown, and
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about that. What's your long-term aim with that? Where are you at?
Well, towards the end of my time at the FA, I remember giving some feedback to a coach who worked for Hull, and a class who was working doing the success criteria, who was trying to share, and said, why don't you use some three words and three images? And I went to see him a few weeks later, and he'd done that, and it was really good. And that, I suppose, that the impact of it made me start thinking, this is something that we should be rolling out. So a couple of us at the FA were doing similar. I was working with Leeds Becky at the time, doing some early years training, and it rolled out there, and the staff bought into it, and the feedback when they were coming back was really positive. And then I suppose that's where cogs started turning in my head, thinking there's something in this. There's clearly something in it. So redundancies came up at the FA. So I took redundancy. I was offered my role to keep my role, but I decided not to. And we started off with Beyond the Physical. I suppose when we first set out, we thought we'd be doing more work with some of the clubs just because of the natural reduction of the FAP unit, but that didn't happen really. And obviously because of COVID, it was a good time to explore courses. So we delivered some courses in level 5 PE specialism, level 3 PE and school sport, for example. But it allowed us time to start really creating content for when schools could use it. So yeah, we got together, we thought about the ethos and the philosophies we developed over time, what we'd seen in school. We started to create a curriculum, which in hindsight, when we first, I wouldn't say rolled out, but we first put out there, and there were some schools that got straight on board with it and really liked the approach. There were only about 2 or 3 units, and some of them had Ofsted. I don't know how they managed it. So it was obviously its inception at that time, and now it's developed. We're always constantly taking feedback from schools and our staff who deliver it every day, and other schools and teachers who we know are living every day. And we're tweaking it, we're adapting it, creating new content all the time, and it's just trying to have that impact. So I suppose the overwhelming reason behind the formation of Beyond the Physical was to set about change. There's absolutely loads of research out there, and again, when I'm doing my deep off, to justify why there needs to be change, there's so much research to say the detrimental impacts a sports-based curriculum could have on children, for example. But there's not much other way. There's not much to say, well, we should be doing this then. So we've gone down the mastery route, and it's a mastery-based approach, and that's formed when we were doing my deprof really around an understanding of that, the impacts of that, because there's other subject areas where it is successful, such as maths and English, but the overwhelming reason for the formation of physical was to change. We need to change the overwhelming number of schools that, if you go back to what I said right at the beginning about how many schools and experiences and teachers and lessons we'd seen and been involved in and delivered, there's still that warm-up skill game as you've got a time. Moving from activity to the next week to week. And when we first set up, when we were saying that this isn't the way forward, it was a bit alien. But now Ofsted reports are saying similar. The subject of Ofsted P review, should I say, are saying similar around ensuring that some depth to learning, and that pupils are allowed to master the fundamentals of movement, fundamental movement skills before they're expected to play tennis. Like someone said, Gethin Thomas said it at one of the presentations I saw recently around his daughter's in year 3, and she came on saying they'd been playing tennis at school, and how one of the hardest possible skills for any child is to hit a ball while on the move. And she didn't even know how to hit a ball off a cone or a tee yet. So there's still too much of that. I think I see a lot of it. Cricket in year 2, for example, that's always in summer really prominent. But play against cricket right away. But it's just we need to change that. We need to change. I think the removal of label, as I said earlier on, is important. Because those who are engaged in PE anyway, you could deliver anything. So maybe a third of your class and more if you're lucky. They're not bothered what it's called anyway. It could be called football. If it's not, as long as they get to use the feet and kick a ball around, they're happy.
Yeah.
What do? We do the 2/3 of the class. As soon as you say, hey, we're doing hockey, just disengage straight away.
Yeah, that's a good point. What was it? When a school approaches Beyond the Physical and they say we'd like to use your curriculum stuff, how much variation do you see in the way it's delivered in a context? So is it, as some people like, I always wonder about this when someone buys into a curriculum, are they thinking that they can just go get it, put it in, and it's going to work? And we know that that's not necessarily the case. It's all context specific. So what are the different interpretations of the curriculum that you've put out there when you go into primary schools and see it?
Well, that is it. So I suppose I need to make that point at the beginning. Really, is ours is unapologetically different. It's very different. So if they've been used in any scheme of work, generally it tends to be week 1 you're doing this, these are the learning objectives, these success criteria, week 2 you're doing this. So ours has only 3 learning episodes per unit. So it requires a teacher to do some teaching, some adaptive teaching, to observe and make necessary changes to the lesson. And the biggest feedback, or one of the biggest elements of feedback, should I say, is I did this activation activity for 35 minutes. Is that okay? Like almost fearful. Like, yeah, that's exactly what you should have done. Or I've this first learning episode. So say the units look, run, avoid. The learning episode on look. It's taken me 3 lessons. The kids have come up with this, and this, and it's gone. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's exactly what you need to be doing. So there are some teachers who, after what you've alluded to, like they just think that they can just go on the platform, press print, and follow a script. We're never going to provide that script because, as you just said, I cannot tell you what a year 4 child can do in one school compared to the school next door. The biggest issue I have in terms of the content is pigeonholing, because again, teachers want to know what year group it's for. I'm like, I don't know, I've delivered it to reception, I've delivered it to year 6 in different ways. The basic concepts or the basic content I've delivered to every year group. It depends on your children. So that's a real key message we try to get across when we're training schools, and going into particularly those who we work closely with on a regular basis, of flexibility, using the teaching skill set you guys have got to just go with it and not feel like you have to stick to a script, because that is not what we want it to be. And so it's important. But again, and that often when I'm having a conversation with a P lead or sometimes a head teacher, it's just totally mind-blowing to them what I'm saying, and it's almost too much for them. So generally what I say to them is, select who you perceive as your weaker members of staff and just let them have a go. And if it works for them, then you'll be fine. And generally it does work for them. So
that's interesting. I think, you and I know that if things are going to change, it needs to be different. It needs to be clearly different, and then we need to measure the impact that it has. But what I really like is the fact that it's a model to almost shape the philosophy and the decision making of a teacher, rather than a prescribed go-to, for example, which is so good. Did you envisage the growth of Beyond the Physical?
No. I mean, the scheme growth is constantly growing, but it's more the left field elements that come in. So the work we're doing within the national schools, for example, if anyone was to say to me a few years ago that this week myself and Paul, my co-director, have been looking at flights to Bangkok to deliver a course out there. We've got a number of schools, like Brampton was like the British School of Kathmandu delivering our scheme of work. And I always find that it's very humbling, but it's also a bit of a pinch yourself, like, that's crazy. So we're doing a lot of work in Northern Ireland, and they were partnered with an organisation called Healthy Kids, who are in like 120 schools all over there, and we've done them a bespoke Northern Irish healthy kids version of our curriculum, and they reporting back to us, they're saying how it's impacting 20,000 children a week. Now, that's crazy. And I know there's bigger organisations than us, and there always will be, I suppose. But that's incredible, and it makes us very proud of what we've done and what we're trying to achieve, definitely. But yeah, the growth in terms of it's the left field things that come through. Like I'd say, someone from asking if we can run a course in Thailand, for example, for the national. The national market's an interesting one. I know you've worked within yourself, Nathan. But it tends to be predominantly secondary trained, doesn't it? And then they might be given the primary to go to deliver to. So interesting market. That's where we've got interest from schools saying, well, all our staff are secondary trained and trying to reception. So we're providing training for them and online CPD sessions. But this one's going to be face to face. But we're really proud of what we've done in a short space of time, and we're excited for what the future holds, definitely.
Amazing. Yeah, no, like from my experience of international schools, there's more roles as the whole school PE teacher. So obviously I'm secondary physical education trained, but taught early years through to year 13 in many of the schools that I worked in. So there are non-specialist primary PE teachers, for want of a better term, working with primary kids every day that could do with that primary specific, curriculum model that can shape their thought processes. And I know Sam Lewis and Zach over in Thailand quite well enough to know that they really would buy into something that they believe in has got quality. And if you're in those schools and in amongst Fabisia as an organisation, it's a really exciting time for you, because you will, hopefully expand the reach even further. So what's next? Is it just maintaining it, or is there any other things in the pipeline for you?
No, I suppose the biggest challenge we have, particularly with regard to the scheme work, is just getting out there. So we sometimes fall into the trap that everyone's on social media. The world is on social media, and they're not. We got I live in Leeds, and I went to a conference, Leeds-based conference, just to deliver some work on mastery in physical education. And there was only 2 people in the room that had heard of it. So there was like 25 teachers in there. Yeah. And I think people perceive, because of my Leeds tones, and probably a few of my colleagues also feel me, that we're just Yorkshire based, but we're not. Yeah. So you would expect probably Leeds to be our hub, but it's not, and we need to find a way of getting in front of head teachers and decision makers and PE leads who know that there's a need for change, but don't know who we are yet. And that's the reality. There's too many people who still don't know who we are, what we're about, and what we do. So our challenge is to try to overcome that barrier to get in as many schools as we can, even if that's not our scheme, for example. So that a lot of the work I do, in particular as an individual within the role, is around advising and consultancy. And a lot of the schools we work with don't use our scheme, but it's just about making it work for them and giving them ideas around ethos on pupil ownership, for example. It's huge. As the overwhelming feedback from Ofsted, it's been deep dived 23 times now, has been around they cannot believe the level of pupil ownership and independence. So I can get that message across whatever scheme they're using. So it's having an impact in whatever way we can to benefit children ultimately and their experiences of PE. So that will continue to be our mission, and where it goes and how it happens. We're seeing. I couldn't have answered that question last year or the year before or the year before that, because it's just so unpredictable, the things that are happening.
It's great. It's a really exciting time for you. Keep it up. So next question, I want you to think about what you work in teacher education, so you work with training teachers and you work with PE teachers regularly. What are you encouraging them to do every day in their practice or in their general lives? What are the top tips that you give them?
Avoid queues. Do the queue replanning. I suppose from my point of view, I suppose it can only go on my personal experiences. So we're going to call it personal bias, but I've been told to stop using that word. It's experiences that formed.
Very philosophical of you.
Yeah. So I've had my experiences rather than bias, I suppose. And going back to the physical literacy statement, really, it's making it meaningful. Now, you have to find out and develop relationships with your pupils to be able to find out what is meaningful to them. You can't create a curriculum and say this is meaningful, because without their involvement and without their leadership and direction. And I suppose that can be something that can be developed every single day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything groundbreaking in terms of that relationship development of just checking in with pupils and finding out. I know I said at the beginning around, I actually used to ask the pupils what they do outside of school. There was a bit of a selfish approach there, seeing if we had a football team lined up, but there was also, right, that person is a swimmer. That person, it gives you straight away, it's an opportunity to connect with that individual.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every PE teacher that listens to this, or particularly secondary, when they're working with hundreds and hundreds of children a week, I'm going to be able to do that with everyone. But certainly when I was teaching, that's what I tried to do. Develop relationships so that pupils would remember me and remember the impact that I've had on them, rather than the lessons that I taught so much. So, for example, going back to the football element, you talked about earlier on, at one point when myself and Paul Quinn were at Tadcaster, half the change room were ex-players, ex-pupils of mine. They're all calling me sir. So the players who were non-pupils were like, why not call me sir, Mr. Waide? I said, well, I don't know. They didn't call me that at school. They called me everything but that. But they having that impact, you know what I mean, on that, the developing relationships so that you can make physical activity, PE, sport meaningful to that child. I think it's a little easier in a primary because of the amount of time a teacher spends with the class. It's making a concerted effort every day to find out what is meaningful to that child. Because it certainly will be different. I'm not saying we can have a bespoke curriculum for every child before things almost being the same, but we need to have an understanding of what our context is, what our children are like, what engages them, what disengages them, before we make decisions on what we're going to deliver to them. So when you see on a Facebook group, for example, has anyone got a year 4 hockey unit? They probably have, but what relevance has it got to your year 4? I really struggle with that. So I'm trying to mute myself on social media. But that was my overwhelming message, is trying to develop relationships every single day, and just even any step at a time. And that will take time, but then that will allow you to shape a curriculum and long-term plans and content that is relevant to that group of children. And it'll change every year, and it'll take effort, but it's certainly worth it.
That's amazing. Steve, I think you've kind of summarized like key thoughts in one message or in one piece there. So thanks for that. I've loved listening to you. I've loved listening about the conception of Beyond the Physical, and then what you're doing with that, and good luck with wherever it goes next, and the continued expansion of that. But your philosophies came through really true today, which is that you really value relationships and holistic development of young people. And I think that's, you and I, like you said, you're preaching to the converted to me, but I think we need to keep spreading that message as far as we can. Where can people contact you if they want to find out more? Or I know you said you're not using social media as much as
definitely not that Facebook group. Needs to stay off that. Not good for my well-being, I don't think. So on social media, there's at Steve Waide, that's my personal one. So you'll get a mixture of football and Beyond the Physical on there. And then there's @ Beyond the Physical for all the stuff we do. And it's a useful place for anyone to check on some of the work that's going on, because schools will share clips and videos and photos of their children engaged in physical education. And it's sometimes, whether you're signed up to us or not, it's just a good place to go to get ideas. And we're always sharing anything that we think is beneficial to, regardless of who's created it or what organisation is. If we think it's going to benefit young children, we'll share it. So Twitter's our main one, but we are on all the other ones as well, Instagram and Facebook as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. That's brilliant. Really enjoyed the chat. And like I said, it'd be really good to maybe catch up face to face again at another sandpit, maybe in the summer.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, then there might be an answer of what did happen, what was next. We'll see.
Brilliant.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the invite.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.